Welcome, everybody. It's Helen Hillix, your host for From My Heart to Yours. I'm an intuitive counselor and licensed therapist, and I am so happy today to be talking to Diana and Richard Daffner, who do intimacy retreats and have for 20 years. And I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a moment. But I want to say why I'm doing all these videos and podcasts on sex and spirituality. I think we'll get into this with Diana and Richard also, but there is a tremendous need to integrate sacredness into sexuality in our culture. You know, it's been so twisted and distorted and suppressed that it's not what it can be. And I want everybody to have the experience of having sacred sexuality. You know, I did not have it when I was a young woman, and I carried a lot of shame about sexuality. And I want to help people heal that and bring forward a fully self-expressed, sacred sexual experience in their lives. And it's so fun too. So that's why I'm doing this. And I'll tell you just a little bit about Diana and Richard, and then we're going to just dive in. Diana and Richard Daffner are the authors of Tantric Sex for Busy Couples, How to Deepen Your Intimacy in Just 10 Minutes a Day. They've been leading romantic vacation workshops for couples called IntimacyRetreats for over 20 years. They have been filmed by ABC Nightline News and featured in USA Today and other publications. And there's a lot more information about their certifications and past history and businesses and all of that at their website, IntimacyRetreats.com. So welcome, Richard and Diana, and thank you so much for being with me today.
Hi,
Great
Helen.
to be here, Helen.
Is there anything that you'd like to tell, any burning desire to tell them about yourselves before we just dive in?
No.
Okay.
Well, before we dove into our business of over 20 years, as you just stated, we were looking at some personal issues that were popping up in our relationship. It was a young relationship at that time, around 7 years, maybe 7 years, probably married only 3 or 4. And that's what drove us to create this body of work. So I think that's a nice preface, is that, you know, couples are going to hit some walls at some point in time, or at many points in time. And, there is a solution. We worked really hard before we came out with our work. We actually were consciously, we woke up and looked at each other and said, you know, there's something that's not clicking right, and we can change it.
Well, actually, I think I'm the one who said, and it primarily did have to do with sexuality at the time. And I think I said to you, you know, things could be better sexually. You know, in the beginning of a relationship, when we first started, he was all attentive. We had lots more. It seems like you have more time when you're dating than when you're not, which doesn't make any sense, but that's how it is. You have, I think our systems put more energy into the possibility of a mate selection, and so we're more attentive. So then after a while, I said, you know, it's not really working so well for me. I mean, we were having frequent sexual times together. It wasn't quite that married sex thing. They said
it was close enough.
You know, the 3-2-1 approach. You know, 3 minutes of foreplay, 2 minutes of intercourse, and 1 orgasm, usually his. Right?
I've never heard that before. I'm going to definitely use that
3-2-1.
Love it.
You know, maybe we weren't quite like that, but it had become kind of routine.
It was Richard having a quickie on Diana's time.
Kind of, it was kind of. And I said, you know, we can do much more. There, you know, we can find a deeper presence here, something more rewarding. And his response was,
I totally agree, but you're going to have to take us there.
So he was.
Well, I was getting satisfied. I was open to learning more. I was open to her greater joy, but, you know, I was being pleased. So I just said, you know, you're going to have to take us there. And she did.
Now, we could have gone in a lot of other directions. I mean, I could have taken things into my own hands, which I sometimes did, or, you know, other paths that couples take to spice up things in the bedroom. But I had already heard about Tantra. I knew a little bit about it already. And that's the direction that we went, looking at how the spiritual and sacredness of our beings could make even our sexual time so much better.
Well, let's stop and kind of unpack what you've said already, because this is enough to fill a whole hour. You know, I love what you're saying about, you know, you woke up one day and you realize, you know, there's got to be more. And I think that is such an incredibly common awareness and awareness that comes just like that comes with, there's got to be something more than this. And so I want to explore that a little bit, because I think it's so common also that one person or the other is the one who says it. Now, you know, you think that it would be both people realize it's not everything it could be, but it's almost always one person or the other. And, you know, I don't want to get into the stereotype that it's usually the woman pushing for consciousness, but it, you know, in the stereotype, just like you said, Richard, you know, it's so much easier for the man to have an orgasm, generally speaking.
Exactly.
That it often is the woman saying that. But then there is the other experience that I hear so much, and I know you do too, of the woman has, because perhaps it's gone on for many years, 3-2-1, that the woman has been disappointed so many times, it's like, I don't want it.
That's correct. That has been our experience, yes.
Yeah, I think that's very common. Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting who drives coming to our intimacy retreats, whether it's him or her, or we have same-sex couples as well who come to our workshops. But I don't really know with the two people. Sometimes one person is the one out there looking and finds us on the internet, but it's the other one who actually contacts us. So I never really know for sure. We don't really have a good data as to who seeks us out truly. And some are seeking out better sex. Some are seeking out, some say, well, the sex is great, but they want more heart, or they want more spiritual connection. So there's different reasons that people come to our workshops.
I love that, because that was one of the things I wanted to follow up on, is when you had that experience at 7 years in, of course, that's, you know, the stereotypic, again, 7-year itch, you know, where things have gone along great and then you kind of come to this plateau. Do you think it was reflective of more than just how you were doing sex? That's kind of what you're alluding to. You know, was it reflective of more than that?
It's a good question. You know, before I met Richard, my background is in, I guess you could call it spiritual work of some sort. I mean, I have a background in martial arts. Before I got into marital arts, I was in martial arts. Okay.
Same letters, different orders. I love that.
Maybe I heard it wrong the first time. But I led and taught and facilitated meditation groups. And I loved that. I still do. And I love the connection a group or I feel with another person when we're deep in meditation. And I wanted to experience that with Richard, but he would fall asleep in my classes. So, but when we brought sex into the possibility that this is a way of also a place where we can have that deep connection, everything changed, everything shifted then.
I love that story. When we brought sex into the mix, and he was interested.
He stayed awake.
I stayed awake.
So I want to ask again about do you think other parts of your relationship were also drifting in terms of focus on connection, or was it just the sex?
I think the sex was, our relationship was working pretty good. In fact, when this happened, we were already committed to working with couples. We had decided to we had I don't think we were an LLC then, but this is in 1991, we made a decision that we would want to create a business that would give couples more joy. We didn't know how this was going to work out. We formed a little company, which at that point in time meant having a business card and starting a newsletter.
The Couples Project. We called it the Couples Project. I think I'm trying to remember, and also our memories are different. You know, I mean, our memories of the timeline and when we discuss it, it doesn't match mine always, you know, what he says. But anyway, there was a distinct moment where we were feeling such joy. And no, we weren't yet doing the same practices we're doing now, but we were feeling such joy. And I felt like I wanted to, is there a way to bottle this and share it with other couples? Because I looked around and other couples didn't seem to be as happy as we were.
So the short answer is, I think our relationship was doing really good. It was at a high point, and maybe that allowed Diana to be brave enough to say, hey, you know, something's not clicking in the bedroom, and let's do something about it. Yeah.
You know, that fascinates me. I don't know if anyone else will be fascinated by this question, but I'm fascinated by this question of how can that be that everything that you were really intimate everywhere else and not connected in the bedroom? I mean, is that a manifestation of our whole culture that says sex is a separate thing, and so it's okay for us to kind of go unconscious over there? Or a dynamic between the two of you where, you know, Richard says if it's good enough, you know that the saying, if it's not broke,
don't fix it, right?
Yeah. So that fascinates me as a therapist, you know, because I see people and relationships as a whole entity, and it's like, how can the arm be broken and the body, you know, not notice? Or
I don't know that we were actually broken in any way, really broken, and using that word.
I like that you corrected that. Thank you.
Yeah. And, but maybe we were, you know, not all that conscious about anything. I don't know. I mean, we were still young and in the marriage, and, you know, so yeah, I honestly, I don't know. I do know that more than likely, had we not found a deeper intimacy in the bedroom, that the relationship itself would have begun to suffer more.
Yeah, it would have drifted.
Well, great. So we've kind of come together then, because I think, like you said, Diana, we don't really remember so well exactly what was going on. It seemed good, but I bet you if you could look back at that time 30 years ago, not quite 30 years ago, but close enough.
Yeah.
You know, that compared to the intimacy level and the ability to work together and harmonize together now, it would be vastly different.
Huge, absolutely huge, but doesn't reflect. I think we had a lot of joy back then, and I don't think we could have pulled this work together if, you know, we didn't start the project. I didn't start this project in denial of her truth, okay? There was no conflict with her truth even. It was just said, this is what you know. I don't know what feminine sexuality necessarily needs. I've never been trained. Train me. Duh.
And the goodness is he was trainable.
So that is the miracle. I mean, you are definitely a trendsetter, Richard.
Always happen.
I'm serious, because I, you know, I'm 70 years old and I've been doing this for 35 years. And I'll tell you how many men, you know, and it's not their fault. Again, it's the society. You know, men are supposed to be this way. And it's so limiting, but you are such a wonderful example of setting aside that trained male ego and just setting it aside and saying, I don't know what I don't know, train me. That is such an amazing, and I really know that our listeners are going to resonate with this, and because it's not just older men either, it's young men You know, it's very difficult. One of the people that I interviewed for a summit I did recently, and I so regret that I didn't know you guys then, because you definitely would have been on the summit, but Susan Bratton, who has a whole other approach in public, not in private, but in public, she has a whole other approach to sexuality. And she has a book called Sexual Soulmate that talks about women telling their husbands or partners or same sex, whatever, exactly what they want. And the man's job is to say, thank you. With every kind of suggestion, the guy gets to practice saying thank you so that his ego doesn't hijack it.
Yeah,
it's a nice practice.
It's a nice practice.
I love that practice, and that's you, Richard.
Oh, thank you.
I don't want to give a false impression. It's not. I wouldn't say 100%.
No.
We don't want to put a crown on Richard's head. But I just wanted to say that because it really does strike me. And, you know, if for both of you, if you hadn't had the courage, and I cannot tell you how many women I work with who say, I just can't say it. And that was me. That was me until much later in life. You know, I didn't say, I like this and I want you to do that, and a little bit over here, a little bit faster, whatever it was. I did not feel self-expressed in that way either until much later. So you had a lot of courage at a young age, and you had a lot of ability to get out of your ego. And that dynamic is a powerful dynamic.
Indeed. I'll step back on one thing you just said, which perhaps is the biggest gift we give couples in our workshops. We give them permission to ask for what they want. That is probably the biggest gift. Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt. And, you know, if we kind of make a connection there to, I've been thinking a lot about what we need and how hard it is for us to say what we need. And, you know, it's like we don't have to have an orgasm, or we don't have to have this level of pleasure. But what we do need is self-expression.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real need. And then if we can do that, and you give them permission to self-express, then all the wants can come piling on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reverse of self-expression would be what? Stuffing it, not speaking, not losing our voice, not being able to speak, disempowering. Yeah. Yeah. I imagine that's what in your therapy, as you as a therapist, I imagine that must be a focus of your work, is helping people to get to that place of moving into their own empowerment. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. And how can you have, you know, I mean, this is a segue between our work, is how can you have great sex if you aren't self-expressed?
You know, it depends. I mean, some people are great lovers, are great sexual, you know, adepts, and it's a great use of the word, but, you know, and so you can have great sex and not have any real connection or intimacy. It's not what you and I and Richard might at this point call great, but for the people who are enjoying it, you know, I mean, they're just
great orgasms,
you know, getting off, getting, you know, I mean, you know, it's not, it's taking, you know, one of the things I liked about Tantra, which I'm sure your listeners probably have some familiarity with to some extent, but maybe I should just briefly give, you know, throwing the word around. So Tantra is an ancient teaching from India, thousands of years old, that was really not about sex. It was really not about relationship. It was probably the first real mindfulness training. It was a spiritual practice about coming home to yourself and being aware on a moment-to-moment basis of the life force and the energy within us. And over the centuries, years, or whatever, in modern times, it's been focused on that one aspect of it that a lot is sexual, because sexual energy and orgasmic energy helps you really get into the present moment. And so that's utilized as a force to awaken us to our divine presence. But one of the things in that world from India is they have they're called gunas. It's a class, you know, every system, every culture, everybody divides people or classifies people. And so this system of gunas talks about, it's tamasic, rajasic, these are Sanskrit words, tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. And when I understood it when I applied it sexually, I understood it is that tamasic sexuality is, it could be anything. It's tamasic in a diet would be like meat and potatoes. It's very earthy. And the qualities of tamas are these earthbound qualities. And so sexually, it could be anything from the negative end would be abuse and rape and the horrors of that, to simply boring sex, you know. And probably most married sex is somewhat tamasic, one-sided, just kind of boring. It might fill the need to some extent for at least one of the people, and it keeps the relationship hopping along a little, you know. And then rajasic, raja means kingly, rajasic is spicy. So in food, that would be your spicy Indian foods, would be rajasic. And rajasic sex doesn't require a real deep connection. It can, you know, swinging on chandeliers, sex toys, you know, the whole gamut of fun. And it can be great. It can be great sex, Hollywood sex. And there can be love. There can be love in it, you know. And then they talk about the guna or the quality sattvic, which is kind of purity. So this would be your vegan food, you know, I mean, people who are trying to have a really pure diet. And sexually, for me, this is what your summit was offering up to hear about, you know, sex and spirituality. It's how we can enter into this world of this realm of sacredness. It's quieter. It's not swinging from the chandeliers. It's quieter. It's more open to the presence of love and deep being, and still sexual at the same time. So that was one of the draws that Tantra presented for me.
Do you feel like, generally speaking, it's a healthy thing to go between the three types? And, you know, sometimes we're lazy and we just want to have meat and potatoes sex. And sometimes we're, you know, adventurous and we want to have that fun variety sex. And sometimes, I mean, I have found that you can integrate the types even within one sexual experience.
Yes. Yeah. And indeed, it often happens. However, more and more, we're doing just that. We're combining the three gunas. And mostly we blend. We sort of have developed a sexual pattern where we have our daily practice, our 10-minute practice, which is
sattvic,
which is totally sattvic,
really,
pretty much.
And that's why when I wrote the book, well, we tried to write the book together, but it says by me with him, because he would comment after some of my writings. So when you go through it, it says, Richard says, you know.
Which are totally, you know, eclectic. They're wonderful statements.
Profound, right?
Profound.
Right. But
profound.
We weren't able to actually write together. But in our book, now I forgot what I was going to say. So the original title of the book was Ceremonies for Love, How to Create Intimacy in Your Relationship. And I was lucky enough to find a publisher, and this was 10 years ago. Our book came out 10 years ago. We're celebrating the anniversary. So I was lucky enough to find a publisher, but he did not like the title. He's the one who changed the title to Tantric Sex for Busy Couples, How to Deepen Your Passion in Just 10 Minutes a Day. So that 10 minutes a day is what caught him, and the fact that sexual practice was, it wasn't the whole book, but it was an important part of it, and he put that in the title. So, yeah.
I want to, Richard probably has something else to say, but I want to ask this first. One of the things that I have experienced just since doing this summit, and of course I've experienced it other places, but you know, the flood of surveys and contact from listeners, you know, has given me a broad, you know, and condensed bunch of feedback. And one of the things that I've noticed is how people focus on sexuality but they really have so many other things going on but the sexuality gets them in the door.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's so much in our minds, you know, we want good sex, which is great. And it gets them through the door, and then they start realizing, oh, you know, which I think is interesting, because that's kind of what your publisher picked up on. You wanted to help create intimate ceremonies, you know, for deepening relationships. He wanted to talk about sex.
Right.
Same book.
Same book, same text.
Same text, absolutely. But sex gets them in the door.
Exactly.
And have you found that? I mean, this kind of goes back to the same question I was asking you, you know, about yourselves, is how was your whole relationship? And I'm not saying, sometimes people do have a really good relationship, they just can't figure out that piece.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the sex is what gets them through the door. Have you found that in your intimacy retreats, that if you start out with sex, that some of those principles can spread out and improve your whole relationship?
Well, that's hopefully what we achieve with our couples, and I think we've been extremely successful. Yes, effectively we attract, let's say, 30s to 80-year-olds, okay, happy couples that are lacking something in the bedroom. There's not the click that they had when they were dating or earlier on in the relationship in the bedroom. But basically, the relationships are on a high level, are pretty happy.
Right. So we're not therapists. We don't do group therapy, even though I have a master's in counseling. But our workshops are not designed for therapy. They're very therapeutic.
I get it.
So
you're not diving into that aspect. You're not exploring the dynamics of their childhood and how they're.
No.
So you know, they pretty much self-select to come to our workshops. We really put out there, this is, you know, you're in a stable relationship, and, you know, and getting along really well, because our workshop's really intense. I mean, we really pack a lot into the weekend. Some workshops are longer, but and you know, we're inviting people to really make a deep connection pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So they need to not be super at odds. Although that said, I have had I remember one couple in particular, but people say, you have no idea how bad we were when we got there, you know, how we've been fighting, or, you know, you have no idea how dramatically your workshop, the intimacy retreat, changed things, because we didn't really fit the mold for being happy when we came there.
I would say less than 20% of the couples that come to our workshop have significant problems.
He likes he likes numbers. He'll make up a number, but he's often right. You know, he doesn't look at the data. We don't really have data to support it. It's just, you know, he has this mind that you know, understands.
Well, but our, you know, often we're very accurate. You know, when a percentage comes to us, it's like, yeah, that's probably.
Yeah, but you've been doing something for 20 years. You got a good intuitive feel of what's happening in the room.
So I want to go back to one thing about the tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic that I was just thinking about, is that on the 10-minute, if we're inviting couples or encouraging them to spend a sexual time together every day for 10 minutes, okay. If it's tamasic, it's going to be too boring, okay. That's not going to happen. If it's rajasic, that really requires 10 minutes isn't really long enough for really good rajasic sex. It's not quite long enough, you know. And then it's going to become more. It's just not going to. It's hard. And if you commit to longer than that, then it's a lot of work and a big commitment, and you know that. So our 10-minute practice does fall into the sattvic, which actually, the truth is, to have sacred and spiritual sexual connection is really easy. Once you have some,
you need a background,
notion of how to do it.
You need a training.
Two things. I want you definitely to dive into your 10-minute practice. It fascinated me. I love it. I've heard of it once before, a long time ago, and I want you to dive into that. And in the process, I'd like you to answer whether you believe that third level, the sattvic, is so important, because what we're really longing for essentially is that connection with ourselves, each other, and the oneness. and that even if you have tons of Hollywood sex swinging from the chandeliers, it's not going to fulfill you in the same way. Not that there's anything wrong with having that too, but if you lack that third level, there's something, even, I have found this, that people, don't think that's what they really are longing for, but once they have it, they say yes.
Correct. I never knew anything like that existed. Just had I wasn't a meditator. I didn't know that connection was possible, or that it's marvelous, but I was ignorant of it.
So he didn't have a yearning for that, and I did, because I knew the experience of intimacy with a human being. I knew the experience of intimacy with the oneness that you speak of, and I wanted to share that. I wanted to share that with Richard, not just go out to other groups and places where we meditated or did ecstatic dance or did things that brought us into that space. And I kept bringing things home to have that with Richard.
Yeah. I love that. That just touches my heart so much. I know we're not into your 10-minute practice yet. We will get
I got a little editorial comment. And one of the things Diana brought home, and this is well into, I don't know if it was well into anything, okay? But no, it wasn't. It was the beginning. The real beginning of my journey of intimacy was when Diana brought home 5 easy-to-do Tai Chi movements that she learned in a quickie workshop, or it wasn't even a workshop. It was a friend of hers showed her these 5 movements and gave her a little cheat sheet on it of Tai Chi. And doing the Tai Chi made me recognize that there's something more out there, and it calmed me, and it had quite an effect on my thinking and my presence in this universe, and allowed me to go forward. Yeah.
I love that. I really want to, there's something at the edge of my mind here that I'm not sure I can articulate very well, but I know one of the things about, I met my husband when I was 57 and he was 60. But we both had been on a spiritual path, not exactly the same, but the thing that made me know he was my partner was that ability to go to that third level, that sacred sex, that we would do sacred rituals where we would both be crying because we could feel the God and goddess in the experience. And it's like, I had never had that with anyone else. And, he drives me crazy sometimes, and I drive him crazy sometimes. Absolutely. But that precious connection makes all the rest disappear. And you were saying before that, you didn't even know you were missing it. But once you had it, can you look back? This is a serious question. Can you look back, and does it register at all that I don't know, that something was missing after all, that you just didn't know it? Or was it like everything was fine then and everything's even better now?
You can't miss something you don't know or understand. So once again, we're having a good life. We're living in Manhattan, but she started, Diana would have meditation classes in the house, and I would summarily try. I understood intellectually what meditation could bring forward, but I would get into sitting meditation and basically fall asleep and or snore.
Yeah, the snoring
really was. But I don't know if it was the first, when she taught me this, we had a large mirror in the living room, and we were doing the Tai Chi in front of the mirror, and I just came out. Now I know what you're talking about when you wanted me to sit still, or or to sense feel in the meditation.
So
There's
yes.
a big click.
So my memory of that actually is we weren't looking into the mirror, we were looking out toward the Hudson River.
Oh, okay.
And and my memory of his exact words, which may or may not have been, were, now I understand why you want me to stay awake during meditation. Because he was experiencing the flow of energy, and he was beginning to step through that doorway to his greater self and to the oneness that you're talking about. And so Tai Chi played a huge role did and continues to, because for our 10-minute practice, okay, I almost hesitate to teach it to people who haven't really done the background work of our workshop, even though it is in our book. So, it's not like I'm keeping it private or a secret from the world. But we developed a program called Tantra Tai Chi, which helps couples outside of the bedroom, facing each other, do slow movements that awaken this life force in them, or brings their attention to it. And we give them a pattern, a way of paying attention. It's mindfulness is the more popular word now that people would use. And so we give them a structure, a pattern of how to truly bring their attention into their bodies and be very present. And then that's what we take into the bedroom for our 10 minutes, is we both are doing this in energy. We're not standing up and doing a Tai Chi movement, but in energy we're
synchronizing our energy.
We're synchronizing our energy.
In fact, that's our acronym for SEX, Synchronized Energy Exchange.
Synchronized. I love that. Synchronized energy exchange.
I have to admit, I don't think I invented it. I think I once read it somewhere. But anyway, SEX, Synchronized Energy Exchange, or sacred, shared energy exchange, And so whenever you're ready, we can tell you more about what we do in those 10 minutes.
Well, something I want to say before my 70-year-old mind lets it slip away is that I think it's also a powerful role model you give your couples, is that, that Richard allowed you to be the leader, and that you're incredible partners, but you were the leader in the, in the beginning, at least.
Oh, absolutely.
And you wrote the book with commentary, brilliant commentary from.
Thank you very much.
But it's still, it's not the usual thing, especially not 30 years ago. How did you manage that in a couple of sentences? I mean, does that still come up, or do you just feel like you're in a completely equal flow now?
I really, are we in a completely equal flow?
And who cares? I don't care, but I just...
Well, I don't know. I can't answer that. I doubt it. I mean, equal is really a tough word, but it's pretty dang close. Right now, I drive certain elements of the business, and for sure, Diana drives certain elements of the business. And of our relationship. It's not just the business, but for sure in our relationship. But we're pretty much on the same page. So like last night I said, hey, yesterday afternoon I said, let's have a massage night. Okay. There was absolutely no resistance to that.
Yeah, I just think it's such it's a whole other topic really, but I love watching couples and connecting to couples who lead together, because I think there is inevitably that ebb and flow of leadership, and that it is such a wonderful modeling, like I was saying, for your couples, because women again are so often holding themselves back because they don't want to emasculate their man, or they're saying, forget it, I don't care about his feelings, I'm going to be in my power. And you are such a great example of that fluid ebb and flow of leadership. And, Richard, you are totally allowing Diana's leadership and vice versa. So
right. I believe that's true. Yeah.
We're a great team.
Yeah.
We're a great team. And we acknowledge that. And we remind ourselves that we're a great team. And it took, you asked about process in the beginning. It did take a while, because I am the one that came with the background in spiritual training. I have a black belt in Aikido. The Tantra Tai Chi came from...
Emanated from Diana? Yeah.
Well, the Tai Chi, which is the first practice that we did together, we both became certified to teach that. And Richard fell in love with it. And then as we taught it to couples, it morphed and changed and became our own practice that we taught. But I'm the one who had been teaching workshops. I'm the one I was teaching massage at Esalen Institute decades ago. I mean, that's what I've been doing. So when we began teaching, it was, we had to consciously weave Richard into an equal teaching position, which he's more than done. And it is great. And I love that we're able to do that.
But I had an experience that I didn't understand was a spiritual experience, and probably has driven on a certain cosmic level, if you wish, my ability to grok and understand, giving the feminine her power, which is wonderful and marvelous, was that I guess like 76, I got Shaktipat by a guru called Rajneesh, Bhagwan Rajneesh, who is effectively the father of modern Tantra. I didn't know about Tantra then. I didn't know about yoga. I just happened to be in Pune at his 50th birthday party, and I just saw all these people, and he was speaking in Hindu, so I didn't even understand it, but there's thousands of people, and I had to stand in line. What is this all about? I had never been to an ashram. I had never done yoga, but I had to stand in line to see this dude. He had great clothes. I loved his casual. So anyway, I did get bopped by Bhagwan Rajneesh, and I think over the years I've adopted him and do consider him.
Can you describe what you mean by that? I did get bopped by.
Oh, Shaktipat is a Hindu ritual that you stand in front of the guru and you get blessed. It's like kissing the Pope's ring. Yeah. But
it's a powerful, energetic experience.
Yes, it was, for sure. Yeah. It was a very powerful, energetic experience that has lived through me, I believe. So when this work started to happen, I can't really say Bhagwan's presence was there at all, but I think behind the scenes, that experience has just opened me up in some way to accept this work. Yeah.
The seed was planted.
Yes. Yeah. So, anyway.
Okay. So I love that, because I think that also gives the audience the idea that, sometimes things happen decades before they actually come to fruition. Oh yeah, I remember that, and that changed me and allowed me to feel this. And I just want to emphasize that, because life is such a process, and we in our country are so goal oriented. And, I have couples that say, I want to have a G-spot squirting orgasm. That's their goal. It's not like I want to have more intimacy and more connection and passion with my husband. No, I want a G-spot squirting orgasm. And it's like, I think if we can relax into the process of it, which is, I think, what you were saying about that you experienced during that Tai Chi, was to slow it down and feel the process and the connection. If we could do that, which I think is a great segue into your 10-minute practice, because that's what you're doing, is you are slowing everything down and just synchronizing. And again, I want to kind of end our time together with that emphasis.
Sure.
Yeah. So when we talk about the 10 minutes and couples want to know what we do, I will tell them they can do anything. If a couple decides that for 10 minutes every day, they're going to, whether it's early morning, late night, before dinner, whatever their time is, if they can find time to kind of get naked and be together in some way, however they design it, You know, I mean, it can be 5 minutes, 5 minutes each of just, you know, being massaged. I mean, it could be anything really.
Right.
That's going to be positive. But what we do, our 10 minutes, is truly a sexual meditation. It's a ceremonial practice that in the Tantra world, you'll often see something called yab yum, where a couple is upright facing each other. And it's not about that position. It's about what they're doing while they're in that position, where they're actually, it's called Maithuna, and they're kind of, each of them is running energy through their bodies. Each of them is paying attention to what's going on, and they're in an intercourse, and it's a non-ejaculatory intercourse. So it's using the Sanskrit words for the genitals, it's a lingam in yoni, penis in vagina, lingam in yoni position. And it can be done without entry as well. It could be done by a same-sex couple, even without entry. It could be done, we can do it without entry. You know, that's not the required piece of it. But we bring our eyes together, we bring our hearts together, our bodies together. And Richard and I tend to not do the upright sitting yab yum. We do a sideways version. So we're actually lying down when we do it. But we're wrapped around each other. Our chakras, our energy centers are connected, and our eyes are open. And we're doing the Tantra Tai Chi in energy as we're doing this. And it is orgasmic, beautiful. It's quiet and powerful, meaningful, joyful, makes me laugh.
Absolutely.
I like
it. Out an erection too. I want to make sure people know that.
Erection is not required. It's not required. If there is one, that can be okay. It may not come inside me if I'm not ready for it, and that's okay also. But in our book, we explain, and at the workshops, how to do this with what we call soft entry. Okay, and that's what we do.
And that's good too. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah.
And I don't know that I would, if it was all we did, I don't know that it would be enough. I think some of that Rajasic and some of those, you know, Hollywood sexual times, or some of the this or that, help keep us alive as well. But this daily practice
holds it all together.
Holds it together.
Makes it available for everything else to happen. Yeah.
Inspires more to happen.
Yeah, I mean, best aphrodisiac is sex itself, and we are definitely having sex every morning.
That's wonderful, and I totally agree with you that practice alone is not going to be enough, but it certainly is a linchpin to the motivation to do more, and to, you know, I love the idea of doing it every morning, because it, you know, it ignites your day.
Oh, yes, exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. I call it my daily supplement.
You know,
vitamin pill.
And you know, and if a couple is having daily Rajasic sex, and they're both having their squirting G-spot whatever's every day, and hey, that's fine. You know, I mean, you don't have to change what you're doing if you're happy with it.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I just think, why not try something in that level, you know, in the pure sacredness level? Just try it. You know, just like I would say, you know, try the spicy type, you know, just try it. But so many people are so much more into trying the spicy hanging from the chandeliers or whatever methodology or toys. But the idea of having soft entry intercourse for 10 minutes without moving and gazing is something like, what?
Well, it's counterculture. I mean, the guys and women for sure are attached to the male erection. You know, that sex erection. Well, it's not necessarily true.
And action.
And action. Slowing down I mean, that's a whole another level of education for man, is slowing down, caring about their woman's pleasure. I mean, men generally never really understood, and there's a broad generalization. There are good lovers for sure. But in the course, this is what you do. You hump, you pump, you ejaculate. And there's no concern for the lady's joy. There's no even understanding that she has joy. So I think our work is a beginning step to encourage people to not only slow down, but to cherish their beloved. And with that cherishing, with that sharing of love, we can get so much more back. It's just amazing.
That's an interesting word to hear him.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if I've ever poised that, but I was thinking, generally, relationships are emotionally starved because guys don't know weren't educated how to give to a woman, how to make love to a woman, and a woman was never educated how to tell the guy to make love to them. And it's a bad place. It's not good. My words aren't elegant right there, but
I understand. People are going to get your meaning, Richard.
Well, the word cherish was interesting because one time I went through a period where I would ask him in lovemaking. We tell people, we teach to ask for what you want, and I'd say, I want to hear you tell me you cherish me. A lot of women are afraid to tell their guy what they want them to say. It's like, well, you got to tell them because they don't have the words sometimes, or tell them not to say what they're saying, take responsibility for what you want to hear. So I wanted to hear him say he cherished me. He couldn't even pronounce it when I first mentioned it, let alone did he have any feeling.
No concept of really what cherishing meant.
So we did it for a while and it satisfied me and I was really happy about it. And now I hear it comes out in regular conversation. How wonderful.
Yes.
Lovely. Isn't that lovely? And I want to end on that because I love that segue that you asked for it in the bedroom and now it's part of your general relationship coming out outside the bedroom. And isn't that so much of what we need is that feeling of how do you cherish each other and yourselves in the bedroom? And from my perspective, the meat and potatoes and the chandelier swinging are wonderful, in their own way, but that the cherishing is really only connected to that sacred sex, the inclusion of it. I'm not saying only sacred sex all the time, but the inclusion of it is where the cherishing expansion comes.
Yeah, and expands into your whole lifestyle and your whole persona.
Exactly.
Where the hot, marvelous orgasm ejaculation climax, it's over. But in the tantric lovemaking, the sapphic lovemaking, that energy just carries through a whole day.
Yes, love it.
We call it peaceful passion.
Peaceful passion, I love it. So remind people again of any upcoming retreats that you're having and, then we'll say goodbye after.
Okay, so depending on when you're, right now, we have retreats coming up in Florida, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and all of it can be found on our website, IntimacyRetreats.com. And the schedule changes or, it evolves, different locations each year.
I will, yes, well, that's true. I will mention specifically, Puerto Rico is coming up in, I guess it's October 11th, so that's real quick. And we have 2 workshops in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, very exciting. That will be one is just for people who have trained with us before, but we have a level 1 on, I believe it's October 18th to 23rd. So it's a 6-day workshop at the Western Resort and Spa in Puerto Vallarta. Very exciting venue.
Very fun. I would love to be at one of those. Any takeaways that you would like to leave people with? I'd like each one of you to have a chance to say something that is on your heart to leave with the audience.
Diana?
Just if this inspires you, we hope this inspires you. Actually, we've been in business a long time, right? And so we've gone through phases of a lot of advertising and articles and magazines, and people would say, well, I see your ads, and we've never been, but they always inspire me. So I hope that listening to this podcast, and all of you are so wonderful. You're a great interviewer, and Helen, and so that the idea that this is possible in your relationship, not you, but the listeners, that this is possible in your relationship. We hope we've inspired you. I hope we've inspired you to seek out some training, some information, to ask for what you want, and to take your partner by the hand and bring him or her along with you, and you won't be sorry. It's something, there's a closeness that couples have that somehow doesn't get expressed often enough. They may feel it, we love each other. Sometimes it takes a crisis where one person is ill, and suddenly the other one is really there for them, and the intimacy that gets developed during that illness is profound. I didn't want to wait for that. I wanted to have that now, and I want it all the time. Not 24/7, but every day works for me. So.
Every day, as long as you both shall live.
There you go. Absolutely. And joy is available. Joy is possible. We have to make choices as human beings, and if we choose to educate ourselves, all this is education. Okay, this ain't no magic. It's just educating yourself to the possibilities of the human existence, and it's not that difficult. Whether it's our workshop or another workshop, or reading a couple good books, going to see a good therapist. Get off your butts. The joy is there. Yeah.
I love that. And it's so interesting. Such a male and female way. I love that. And I want to say, one of the things that just makes me so sad in receiving all these surveys back about is how many people are in pain. They can't love their body enough to open up sexually, or they've had trauma in the past and they can't open up sexually, or they have different libidos or whatever it is. And I want to emphasize what both of you said, is that you can have it. You are worthy of having so much more than you have right now. And don't give up. Don't despair. I don't care. I'm working with a couple right now that didn't have sex for over 10 years. And, in 3 sessions, they are working on sacred rituals that are allowing them to begin to have sex this week after all those years. It's like, don't give up, guys. Don't give up. You can still have it. I don't care if you haven't had sex for 20 years. I don't care if you're single. You can have sacred sexuality with yourself. So whether it's working with me or it's working with Diana and Richard or all of us and 10 other people, I don't care what you do something. Do something, because it is just the essence of our human existence, is to have ways to have that sacred intimacy.
Well said.
Well said, yes.
Okay, so I love you both. Thank you so much for coming on today. I hope we stay connected. I know you'll be part of my next summit whenever that is. And, I hope you'll think of me in any way I might support you too. So
come to an intimacy retreat. Blessings. Love you. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Helen.